my actual paper. So I have my halfway mark here. And it's a little bit hard to tell because my sketch is like bigger than my webcam will allow you all to see. So you can see I have this full rectangle, and I have halves here, halves down here, right there. And it's reflective of what my viewfinder looks like too. So what I noticed when I looked at my ghost picture through my viewfinder, there we go, is that his head falls at about halfway at the top. So we have this halfway mark at the top. His head's like right there. Right? So I would draw either, if I were you, I would use a dark pencil. If you feel like challenging yourself, maybe you'll draw with charcoal, up to you. Okay, I draw his head. I see that his hands, or hers, or theirs, fall at, no, stay open. His hands fall at about a little, oh my goodness, this is so hard to show you guys. I'm just gonna swap out the viewfinder and just say, like, you get the general idea, right? It's used to frame. I can use my phone as the viewfinder too. So this is about halfway, and his arms are a little bit higher than halfway up. So on my actual drawing, these are my halfway marks. So I know his hands are a little bit higher than halfway up. Okay, I also noticed that his hands on this side don't stick out the way that his hands on this side do, right? His hands are a little bit more like tucked in. This hand on this side is like sticking out almost like a shoulder, whereas this one stays closer to the inside. That one juts out. This one stays in. And then I keep following his shape. He's got like a little triangle right there. So I cut in and I cut down. That's like a little triangle. And then I follow the shape of his robe down this side. I see that it cuts in there, and then it just drapes down like that. Okay, then I have the general shape of my ghost. And then I do his eyes. I like to do the eyes first because it kind of sets me up for success. It lets me know where my top is, where my bottom is, and it just is like the one thing about this ghost shape that has its roots in reality. Like, we know where the top is, we know where the bottom is based on where the eyes are. So if I can just follow along with that logic, then I can keep everything sort of in perspective. I know where the eyes are, so I know where this big chunky line that represents this shadow is. And there are about 3 main shadows on the top of my ghost. And I'm not sketching super hard. I'm not going to press really hard with my pencil or with my charcoal in this area because this is dark, but it's not the darkest dark. And even if it is, I kind of want to work at it with like a middle ground. I want it to be like a medium dark, not a super dark. It's easier to work your way backwards from a medium, like if you need to erase it, than it is if you're going really, really dark. So try pressing lightly while you're blocking out these shadows. This shadowy line goes down pretty far. I can see it goes all the way past his arm, and it goes all the way down there. Good, there's a glare. See that? It kind of goes down, and it makes like a little crescent-shaped valley or like a little delta. Like it looks like it fans out at the bottom. Okay. So I'm just fleshing out some of these details in the beginning. And then you can blend it so that it doesn't look quite so scratchy. And if you're working with a pencil, you can blend it with a blending stump, or you can blend it with your finger, or you can even just try erasing it a little bit. Or you can be like, I'll go back in and worry about that later. This whole point right now is just setting up where your shadows would be. So I'm even going to switch to a pencil now so that I can show you the other way of working on this, where you're basically drawing the outline of where your shadows are. So this is the kind of triangle shape shadow that's right here. And then I see that there's another triangle shape down here. So it's a triangle, but it also kind of looks a little bit like an upside down V. And then there's this other really long V-shaped shadow down here. Right over here. That glare is gonna really bother me. Hang on a sec. See if I can adjust that. Work with me, elements. No, even worse. Oh boy. Okay, well, here we go. And then another long shadow right there. This one's a little bit more like this big block of area. It almost looks like the shape of like an old-fashioned pipe. Maybe a little bit lower. Then you can always go back in and erase areas that you're not quite sure it looks correct. If I move it over here, if that'd be better or worse. A little bit better. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of filling out these areas or setting up where I see the shadows and what sorts of shapes they're making. Okay, and then I can just go in and fill in those shadows. And I look back at the shadow and I see like how dark is it, and are there other lines coming through, like in this area right here. This is where I'm kind of zooming in on this area and seeing how true it is to the form that I have. I might bring this area down a little bit more, and I might take that area up a little bit higher, right? It almost looks like they're fitting in with each other. Like this is kind of matched up with that. Just filling that area in. Right. And then there's this lighter gray. This is dark, that's dark. Between them is this little light gray area. So I'm going to start filling that in really lightly with my pencil. Okay. And it's also a little bit lighter gray up there. Okay. And then I just keep bringing that down there. I'm going to switch to my charcoal so I can fill out more area faster. And I know it stays consistently pretty dark all the way down to the edge, but I see that it's really dark on the edge, and then it gets a little bit lighter toward there. Then there's this whole area, that's super white, but there's also a little line of light gray. So I would try to honor that area of light gray by just making a little line, noticing where it starts, where it stops. Kind of keeps going until this little area of light gray there. And then if I'm using charcoal, I can rub it out. If I'm using pencil, I would just draw really lightly, like this. The idea is to just try to blend as much as possible so that you don't really see the edge here. Like these two shades of gray should blend in together. There can be a little bit of contrast, but you don't want it to be like a stark jump like it is here. Like this is white, white, that's dark, dark. This is a lighter gray, that's an even lighter gray, and then that's white. That smooth transition from edge to edge is what makes these like nice, convincing shadows. And I'm only going to focus on this area so that, I don't take up all of your guys' time today. And then you can take your white Conti or your eraser, and you can, wherever there's a really bright white, you can draw in the white. Or you can use your eraser to erase whatever pencil lines you might have made. If you don't have this, I use white chalk, but you guys probably have white Conti in your kits to get kind of this more stark white. And then once you've filled in all of your shaded areas, you will create your background with charcoal, preferably. If you're like, I don't have charcoal, go ahead and use pencil. It's going to take a lot longer. It might not give you quite as smooth of the background quality as you might like to see. And there you have it. So really step by step, you want to first sketch out the shape of your ghost, then sketch out the shape of the shadows, and then start filling in the shadows that are the darkest. And then once you've done the shadows that are the darkest, you can go in and do the shadows that are lighter. Doing the shadows that are darkest just helps you see where everything falls in your image. And then when you start to add in the lighter shadows, you know where they go based on where the bigger shadows are. Right? All right. So start looking at your image and start mapping it out on your drawing pad.